So to start, to explain aggregate demand and its components, and also how it relates to GDP. So first off, aggregated demand is the total spending on goods and services in a country's economy at a given price level, and its components have to do with the C, which is the consumer spending, the I, which is investments, the G, which is government spending, and the X, which is net exports. And aggregate demand and GDP have an inverse relationship, creating a downward slope, showing that lower price levels correspond to a higher quantity of GDP demanded.
All right, so this is the next part here is aggregate supply in the short and long run. The short run is how firms and businesses react to when the prices are sticky. And to define stickiness, it's when the prices or wages do not adjust to the changes with the economy. So when these prices are sticky, the slope on the supply curve it goes upwards. This is because it shows that a higher price leads to more output. And now on the other side, the long run, the output of the economy can give is solely based off the resources and technology that the country has available. The slope of this goes vertical because there's a total limit of what a country can produce.
So next, to explain the aggregated demand to aggregated supply model. So the aggregated demand has a downward sloping line because people will buy at a lower price, and the aggregated supply in the short run has an upward sloping line because at higher prices, companies will want to produce more. And in that short run, wages and resource prices don't change. In the long run, aggregated supply line is completely vertical at full employment because it's not affected by price, but rather it's affected by wages and resource prices. And when aggregated demand increases, the short run price level increases, creating an inflation because price level and GDP are over the full employment levels. So when wages and resource prices increase, short run aggregated supply decreases. So then when aggregated demand decreases, price level and GDP now decrease, creating a recession because they are now lower than the full employment levels. But in the long run, wages and resource prices fall, making aggregated supply increase, creating a new equilibrium at full employment.
So this is a scenario that would happen for a recession in aggregate because of a gap in aggregate demand. A gap begins when a company's total potential output is less than the total actual output. This demand ends up being too low to fully supply and fulfill the resources needed to operate as if it were to have the resources. When this happens, it leads to the business selling less products, which means that they'll make less money. Making less money leads to less production, and then you have to lay off employees because you can't pay off them. Here's a graph on how that would look. The Q1 in the middle there is the starting point, and then you can see the AD1 and the LRAS1, and then you can see the vertical line to the left as it goes down. To explain this, and give some solutions. So, first possible solution would be to increase government spending, to increase the demand for goods and services to boost the economy out of its recession. So, spending more money would just make the economy flourish a little bit more and drive people to spend more money. Another solution would be to just boost people's income. So, like their pay wages, just boost them up a little bit. Now, this would make them spend more money as well to get the economy boosting. Um, some side effects could inflation because the rates could be too low for an extended period of time. And then another effect that could happen is there'd be more debt to the government because they would use all this money spending to try to boost the economy back up. Uh, and this would happen if there'd be no offsetting factor to the spending. So like them gaining money off of interest loans or stuff like that.
And then finally, an historical event where a similar policy that was just stated was implemented. The most renowned event in history was obviously the Great Depression, and what President Franklin had to do was he was forced to spend government money through federal agencies, public work projects and programs to get the country slowly out of the depression. So, like the example above, Franklin used the route to increase government spending to bring the country out of a recession.
All right, that's all we have. Thank you.